During the early 17th century, Christian literature written in Chinese was imported from China to Korea. In 1777, Christian literature obtained from Jesuits in China led educated Korean Christians to study the faith. At this point, some Koreans started to be converted to Catholicism. When scholars first introduced Christianity to Korea, ordinary people flocked to the new religion. The new believers called themselves Chanju-kyo Yudal, literally, friends of the teaching of God of Heaven. The term friends was the only term in the Confucian understanding of relationships which implied equality. When a Chinese priest managed to secretly enter the country a dozen years later, he found 4,000 Catholics, none of whom had ever seen a priest. The Catholic communities were led almost entirely by educated laypeople from the aristocracy, as they were the only ones who could read the books that were written in Hanja. The community sent a delegation on foot to Beijing, 750 miles away, to ask the city's bishop for their own bishops and priests. Eventually, 2 Chinese priests were sent, but their ministry was short-lived, and another 40 years passed before the Paris Foreign Mission Society began its work in Korea with the arrival of Father Mabin in 1836. Paul Chung-hazong, Augustine Yu-Chingil, and Charles Cho-Shinkol had made several visits to Beijing in order to find ways of introducing missionaries into Korea. Since the Sini persecution of 1791 to 1801, there had been no priest to care for the Catholic community. Serious dangers awaited the missionaries who dared to enter Korea. The bishops and priests who confronted this danger, as well as the laypeople who aided and sheltered them, were in constant threat of losing their lives. Bishop Laurent Imbert and 10 other French missionaries were the first Paris Foreign Mission Society priests to enter Korea. During the daytime, they stayed in hiding, but at night they traveled about on foot attending to the spiritual needs of the faithful and administering the sacraments. The first Korean Catholic priest, Andrew Kim Taegon, who was trained in Macau, succeeded in entering Korea as a missionary. However, 13 months after his ordination, he was put to death by the sword in 1846 at the age of 26. The idea of Catholics gathering in one place with no distinction on the basis of class were perceived to undermine hierarchical Confucianism, the ideology which held the state together. The new learning was seen to be subversive of the establishment, and this gave rise to systematic suppression and persecution. Official documents detailed trials and the sentences. There were 4 major persecutions. The last one was in 1866. The Joseon dynasty ruled Korea from 1392 to 1897, then was replaced by the Korean Empire, and then Korea was annexed by Japan in 1910. The Joseon dynasty, founded by General Yi Sung-ji-wai, was established in 1392, succeeding the Goryeo dynasty. Korea under the Joseon dynasty was a society based on Confucianism and its hierarchical class relationships. There was a small minority of privileged scholars and nobility, while the majority were commoners paying taxes, providing labor, and manning the military, all above a slave class. Saint Alexius was a young layman, born to the wealthy nobility in the apostolic vicariate of Korea. Having become interested in Christianity, he met with Saint Simeon Francois Bernoulli, and Saint Marcus Chung Uibe, served as his catechist. Through Saint Marcus' efforts, he converted to the faith. His family was strongly opposed to Christianity, and Alexius left home to work with missionaries, translating the Catechism and other texts to Korean. During one of the repeated persecutions, all Christians in his village were arrested. Alexius gave in to his fears and denied the faith and was released. He then repented and went to prison to confess his failure to his bishop. He was then arrested, imprisoned with the others, tortured, and finally executed for his faith. He is remembered with the Korean martyrs, but his special memorial is kept on March 11th.